Good evening, everyone, and welcome to An Evening with Senator Michael Moore. I'm Joe Coggins. I'm your host, and Senator, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here again, Joseph.
Well, that's your show.
Well, you know, I have to be polite.
Yeah, I guess you do. Well, it's certainly been a busy week for you, a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
The parade was a smashing success.
Yeah.
One of the best parades, probably the best parade the town of Millbury ever seen, and the fact that I along with Tommy Fox, we did the moderating of the parade. Just think, 100 years from now, somebody's going to look at that.
And but they'll remember who you were.
They'll remember who we were, and if they don't remember who I was,
I'm sure you said your name enough on the.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I also put in my name with the Bicentennial Committee to see if I could get on do this at the Tricentennial.
Oh, good, very good.
And they said they would take it under consideration.
Did you give them any personal belongings to put in the time capsule? Or?
I did.
Oh, good.
I did do that.
Very good.
I did do that. And also the fireworks, the carnival, everything. It was a great celebration, all kidding aside, and I enjoyed playing a very small role in it compared to the 3 years that the folks that put it all together.
Oh, the committee and everyone did a great job with
Oh,
all the events leading up
fantastic.
to, from the gala to the birthday party that they had
Right.
before it. And it really was. It was a nice turnout for the parade. I thought the public came, supported it. It was a great turnout, and even the amount of people that they had participating in it, it was really nice. Actually, my wife's parents, brother, sister, and their family was in town, and so we took them down to see the fireworks, and they all loved it.
Ah, fantastic.
Better than New York.
Well, I can understand that.
Yes.
They really did put a great effort into it, and I think of all I've been to all the major events, but I think the one I really enjoyed the best was the ball at Mechanics Hall.
Yeah, no, that was really.
I really enjoyed the band. The band was fantastic,
Yeah.
and I would love to see them again. And if that means I have to force myself to go to Mohegan Sun, because they're the house band for Mohegan.
Joe, you never know. Maybe you can go somewhere closer soon.
I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for that to happen, but I hope I'm still here.
You never know what can happen.
I suppose miracles do happen,
Yes,
right?
they do.
But all in all, and we hope, of course, that everybody had a nice 4th of July. And when you see some of those folks that were on that committee, thank them for a job that they did, because a 3-year commitment to something like that. I mean, I wouldn't even begin to want to mention names, because there was just so many people.
Yeah.
And everybody had a role in that. I know who they were, and when I see them, I'm going to tell them thank you for your 3 years of hard work you put into it. So, having said that, besides the fact that you were busy with what went on here in your hometown with the Bicentennial, you've had a busy time down at the Senate.
Yes.
The Senate did pass their fiscal year 2014 budget, and I looked it over, and it appears to me it's probably the most realistic.
Yes, much better than I think the version the governor had put out.
Well, the governor
6 months ago
has
Yes.
big ideas,
Yeah.
but I like the Senate's budget. Well, I don't like spending taxpayers' money at all, but if I have to spend money, I think the Senate bill was, the Senate budget was probably the most realistic, as I said. Why don't you tell the folks here just exactly what you folks did in that process?
Well, again, when the House and Senate does the budget beforehand, you agree upon the revenues that you have to deal with. So the budget that came out of conference committee was roughly a $33.9 billion budget. And originally, when we went to budget negotiations, we had to close a $1.2 billion budget gap, which, if you look over the last 5 years that I've been in office, when the recession first began, we were at 1.6 to close to $2 billion. So this was the smallest budget gap that we had to close. We also had this leading up to the budget. The first 6 months of the fiscal year, which was July 1st of 2012 to December 31st, 4 of the 6 months, we actually met the benchmarks that we had set. That's the revenue benchmarks that we expected to bring in for revenue each month. November and December, we didn't. And if I think everyone can remember, in January, we had to give the governor what's called 9C authority. That was so he could go into the accounts that he had authority over and reduce those line items, because the state, in Massachusetts, we have a constitutional amendment or constitution that requires us to have a balanced budget. So in January, he went in, he was given the authority to make the 9C cuts for the areas he has authority over. He did that. Then January, February, and then the rest of the fiscal year, we actually came in above the benchmarks. And as of the end of the fiscal year, we were roughly $550 to $600 million above the benchmarks. Now, the benchmarks were revised. When he made the cuts, he actually revised the benchmarks lower. But we actually met those, and in several months we actually exceeded them by substantial amounts. I think it was April was about $140 million above the benchmarks. So basically, again, the budget, so we closed the budget gap. We had that revenue. What we did in the Senate budget, on the final budget, is that we fully funded circuit breaker, which the state is required to fund 75% of the special education costs. And the first time we had done that was in this current fiscal year we're in, since 2008, when the recession first hit. Every line item was cut. The only line items that weren't cut over the last 5 years was veteran services and the Chapter 70. So last year, we restored the circuit breaker to the full amount since 2008, and we follow through again for next fiscal year. We also increased the regional school transportation. We increased that. We also established for the first time a regional vocational school transportation line item for $3 million. This is for the communities who, if you've got a student that is looking for a curriculum or an area of study that your vocational school doesn't have, for your school district, or your school district doesn't have, your school system, you're obligated to pay the costs of that student going to wherever that school district is, for him to acquire those skills. And that could be substantial. One community, Leicester, I think, was paying $30,000, $40,000 a year, if not higher, because their school didn't offer the program. The vocational school that they go to didn't offer it, so he was actually going to another district that was substantially further away, and the costs were quite expensive for the community. So the $3 million should reimburse all the cities and towns across the Commonwealth with the cost for this. What we also did in the Senate budget, we supported changes to the state sex offender registry law. We increased the funding for the municipal police training programs. We changed the residency requirements for civil service employees. We increased the funding to the state's pilot program. That's payment in lieu of taxes. That's for the communities that may have state property in the community and they're not getting any local property tax. So the state pilot program actually reimburses communities some costs or revenues in lieu of taxes.
Can I ask a question while you're
well, actually, I'm in a roll right now, so.
Oh, I know you're on a roll. I wonder, what changes did you make to the civil service residency?
Basically, the civil service law required within 10 miles of the home community. Mm-hmm. But why this was changed was that even though this law had been in effect for quite a long time, a lot of communities weren't enforcing it. Mm-hmm. So what we've had over the last year and a half is communities now trying to enforce a law which and hold their employees accountable. Yet for the last 6 years, 10 years, 15 years, you've got employees who were living outside of this distance, and some communities are coming back trying to discipline them or forcing them to move in. Well, this is a requirement that you're going to enforce. It should be upon the person's hiring you. I don't think it's fair for anyone to go back to someone who's been working in that community for 10 years, 5 years, 15 years, and hold them accountable to a law that you weren't enforcing.
Enforcing, right.
So what we did is we allowed the communities now to bargain with the unions over the implementation of it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some flexibility now with the local communities and the unions on requiring future employees or maybe current employees. There's some way for them to work out a middle ground so that we don't have employees being disciplined for something that really is not their fault.
Right. I agree with that. I was just curious of what changes you made because I wasn't aware.
Yeah, this really came to light within the last 6 months that all this was going on. We also increased the Shannon grants. You know what that's for. Would support the communities with high gang violence, high crime and gang violence. We increased that to $7 million. We increased the UGGA funding, which is the Unrestricted General Government Aid. That's the local aid. That's not the Chapter 70, which goes to the schools. This is the government aid that goes to the town side services, municipal services. We increased that by $21 million. We also increased some home-based rental assistance. And as I said, we actually, in an amendment that I had passed, we increased the regional school transportation by $2 million. And we also, another amendment which I was able to get through was an $11.5 million amendment. And it's called the Child Care Rate Reserve. Basically, and this is for the before the kindergarten. This is for the young kids that right now the state over the last several years has been increasing the mandates, or the prerequisites, I should say, for our early educators. So when you're dropping your child off to work, you're going to some of these daycare providers that there are state mandates on their educational level, training that they have to receive. Well, they haven't received a pay raise in 6 years, yet they're required now to get master's degrees and attain, so they really have to their prerequisites are very high. So their average rate of pay is roughly about $23,000. Now, and it's been that rate for the last 5 years. Now, every one of us every day feels the impact of cost of living, from health care to just general expenses. Everything's going up. And again, these are people that we're dropping our kids off to take care of, and also to teach them. And the problem a lot of these providers are having was that once the teacher or the early educator is reaching a certain level of experience and attaining that education level, they're leaving, and they're going to a K through 12 or another higher paying position. So it leaves a void in these areas. So we appropriated $11.5 million to help pay some of our early educators, again, who haven't had a pay raise in 5 years. We increased the funding for the foster care and adoptive child care tuition and fee waiver. That was another amendment I was able to get through. We increased that by $400,000, bringing that to $3.6 million. And we had talked about this previously. The fair share. This is the health insurance for small businesses, and the changes we had made to that. Basically, we were able to do was eliminate the filing form now, so that the small businesses don't have to go through the administrative work of actually filing certain paperwork. And I actually worked with the Associated Industries in Massachusetts on this. This is was one of their major initiatives this year, to try to reduce some redundancy and over-regulation over small business. So we got that done. And again, what we changed in the sex offender registry law, we strengthened the procedures for classifying the sex offenders, ensuring that the Sex Offender Registry Board has information that it needs, obviously, to protect our kids. What we did is we allowed the Sex Offender Registry Board to increase the level. Sex offenders are classified in 1, 2, or 3. Prior to this, you needed a conviction, another conviction, to increase the level of the sex offender. So you could have had a local law enforcement, police department, or not even police department. You could have had an entity calling up the Sex Offender Registry Board saying, "We see these characteristics, or we see the person doing this." Well, the Sex Offender Registry Board did not have the authority to increase the level, because increasing the level is more scrutiny or monitoring and supervision of the individual. So what we did is we now allow the Sex Offender Registry Board, based on information received, to increase this level. Level 2 and 3 sex offenders will also be required now to register within 2 days of being released from custody. The law currently requires level 2 and 3 sex offenders to annually register in person, but it did not specify when they must first appear. And I think those are some of the highlights that we did. Also the level 2 sex offender information must be made available online, and requires the Department of Early Education to cross-reference sex offender registry information with the address of child care program, the address of a child care program when licensing or approving child care providers. So those are some of the highlights.
Well, those are very good highlights. What I think the Senate had a good intentions where they did this. They weren't reacting to doing all this, but they would. This was more preventative. In other words, they didn't wait for something awful to happen and say, "Oh, well, now we got to change."
Yeah.
Certain things. You folks went along and made the changes before that happened, and that's a good thing.
No, it is. Usually government, from the local level to the
Oh,
top,
absolutely.
it's usually reactive. So this is
Proactive.
actually, right, this was a proactive attempt.
And that's good. But I've said this time and time again, and I'll continue to say it until it changes, is that I think this the Senate, since you've been there, Mike, you've changed the whole Senate. But no, I've learned a lot about the Senate, but they really seem to be on top of their game.
No, I think so. I think we, everyone puts a
And
lot of effort into it.
I mean, time and time again, people are thinking of certain things, and you guys are acting on it. I should say, guys and gals,
Yep.
are acting on it.
Well, and I think too, when we're doing the budget, there was all that controversy on the welfare fraud
Right.
that was going on, and how there was a lot of controversy that the Senate didn't act on certain amendments that were put forth. But that was because that we had the comprehensive welfare reform package that was coming out, which came out and was passed by the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually encompassed a lot of the amendments that certain people were trying to get through, that like the one on the photo IDs. Now, that was one that the amendment that was filed in the Senate budget just required it. Didn't have a cost to it. And as we saw when we did the welfare reform, so like when some of us voted against it, that amendment, I was unopposed to the photos being put in the IDs. What I was opposed to the fact was that here's an amendment, was requiring a change in the procedures, but there was no funding that was tied to it. And I think we've got 100,000 people on some sort of assistance throughout the state. Well, as we saw when we did the welfare reform, there was $5 million of costs associated, because we now have all those cards have to be brought back in, all the process. So it wasn't just the person who put the amendment forth just do it. Well, you can't just do it. There's cost to everything.
Oh, of course.
So and so that was one of the things that and we at a later date we can probably if it gets adopted by both branches, but we can go over the welfare reform where we require the photo identification. We've got the new program, the Program Integrity Division. There's going to be more cross-referencing with different state agencies. So that was a good program. Actually, we actually provided funding too for some job training skills. It's because it's hard to get people off of the system if they don't have the skills. And actually, one of the big things that we did in the welfare reform was that before you can apply for assistance, you have to show that you were already out looking for a job, that you were looking for employment. So it's not just, you're out of work and you just show up. There's going to have to be some sort of verification that that you attempted to find work, and there's got to be third-party verification too. So the third party, the entity who you may have been going to work for
Gee, you
employment.
mean they'll take those signs out of the airports if you want welfare, come to Massachusetts? Because it seems like if these things pass, and if they're enforced, it would appear to me that it's going to be difficult for people to get assistance. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against people getting assistance, but people that really need assistance.
Well, and that's the discussion that pretty much went on. You've got one group that didn't want any changes to the system, claiming that you're going to be hurting people. Well, similar to what you're saying, that a lot of us were arguing, look, we're not opposed to assisting people, but you want the revenues or the support to go to the people who really need it. You don't want it to go to people who are gaming the system. So a lot of the reforms that we did actually were I think were very good. Again, there was requirements on businesses, because no matter what reforms we make, if we tell a business, or we say you can't purchase these items, if you go to that retail outlet and they still accept the card, allowing you to purchase, I mean, if we change the law, we need the retail. It's got to be a cooperative relationship here. They've got to help enforce it also.
Oh, absolutely.
Some of the things that we identified were like red flags. The auditor's report identified that there were several individuals who made purchases at retail outlets or small stores for $100. Well, I think we all know when you're going shopping, how often does that figure come out to an even amount?
Doesn't.
Right, and to have that happen multiple times, that should have been a red flag for the DTA caseworker to notify their fraud unit. Because usually what that indicates is that the retail outlet is just running the EBT card, and if say it's $100, well, they're taking $100. They may be only giving the person who needs assistance $60 or
really?
$70.
That little.
Yeah, and then
Really?
they keep the difference. So
Nice work if you can get it.
yeah, so there was some. It was also like there was some identification. The replacement cards. There was one person who put in for multiple. I'm not talking one or two replacement cards. An outrageous amount that when those numbers, you don't lose a card 100 times.
That could be a red flag.
Right. So there were certain things that
Maybe.
should have been reported. And there was also there was a lot. What we're reinstituting too is some of the job requirements that were actually job requirements and training requirements that was actually passed in the mid-90s, but it was actually under the Romney administration that they didn't utilize them, that they done away with. So we actually, as part of this, we're bringing those back. So so it's a good bill. It was a cost of about $22 million, I think it was, between, if you look at the cost of the some of the job training programs that we have to do, the photos.
You think there's a strain between the auditor's office and the Department of Welfare, or whatever they call it
DTA?
now?
There's a little. No, and actually, in fairness to DTA, some of the things that were identified, they had actually already been working on.
Yeah.
So the new commissioner, Stacey Monahan, they had actually put together a 100-point plan, and they had actually been in communication with the auditor's office and working on some of this. For example, when the auditor came out with the 1,600 people who had deceased people who were supposedly receiving benefits, when they asked for the information, the auditor gave them 178 names. When DTA went back and looked at the 178 names to try to just to confirm with their records, how many people do you think were actually deceased?
I have no clue.
17.
Oh, really?
So there was a gap between what the auditor was saying that they had on file as people who were listed as deceased receiving benefits for DTA. So DTA went back and confirmed there's only 17.
Do you think the picture on the DTA cards, do you think that will withstand a Supreme Court challenge?
That's yet to be determined. We have, and this is another issue that came up in the Senate debate when the amendment came up, and I wasn't even going to mention it, but because the cost issue was more what the fact there was no cost was really in that we were going to address in a comprehensive bill is why I voted against that aspect of it. But they also brought up in there that right now that that there's some federal restrictions regarding this.
I don't see the big deal.
Listen, Joe, I'm with you on that.
Well, no, I understand. I'm just speaking
saying,
out loud.
But supposedly there's federal regulations that restrict it. Yet and this is where it's confusing, because there are currently some states that actually require the photo. So if you've got some states that already have the photo on there, yet we're being told that it's against federal law.
Well,
so the ultimate, you may have someone appeal this, but we're requiring that the photo system be in place a year from July, so July 2014.
We have our pictures on our driver's license. Yep. We have our pictures on pistol permits.
Yep.
We have our pictures. Some credit card companies now put your picture on the credit card.
Well, see, that was part of the thing that if you're going to mandate pictures, photos on the cards, that they have to be, you have to mandate them on all the credit cards. Also,
well, I don't agree with that.
Well, but
taxpayers aren't paying my credit cards.
I'm just saying what was being relayed to us during this. So, so that's some of the issues that we got. And actually, one thing I tried to do in the Senate budget too is the Registry of Motor Vehicle has a facial recognition program where if you want to apply for a license, if you go down there, have your photo taken for your license. If you then try to go to another registry and say you were trying to game the system and use a different name with that photo, the system they have will utilize the photo and to make sure there's no you can't use a different name with that photo. So there's a recognition system that will identify that name, that face, your face, with any other photo on their system. So I had an amendment that tried to tie the same thing in, is that if we're going to do the EBT card with photos on it, or the assistance, that we should have that. You don't want someone going to Worcester DTA saying, I'm Joe Coggins, having my picture on there, then leave and go to Lowell
and do the
same thing, and this time he's got a different name on it. So the amendment I had was to tie that into, have them work with the registry to tie that system into the registry system. So
good idea.
Yeah, so
good idea. Wow. I want to go on to our next issue because I think this is very important in light of the things that have occurred most recently at the road race in Boston on Patriots Day. And that's a bill pertaining to limiting legal action. That word bothers me, so maybe you can clear it up for me. That can be taken against off-duty public safety personnel who respond to individuals in need when they're not working. Part of my question, or my question to you, Mike, is if I should be at an event where something like that, God forbid, happened again, and I help them within the scope of my training, but I'm not on the clock.
now you'll be safe.
I'll be safe, but it says limiting legal action. That means you can sue me, but what, only get so much?
Well, no. The intent of this is that so you can't get sued.
Oh, okay.
So obviously, if you say you responded and you tried to do surgery, something beyond your capacity,
beyond the scope of my
right,
training. Of course
right.
you're
So
gonna
that's
sue
what.
me.
So looking.
I'd sue me.
Right. So this is so that if you've got EMS, for any sort of first responder that that's just saying they're off duty and they're responding to try to help someone out of their own goodwill, trying to help someone, they shouldn't be subject to any sort of lawsuit.
Does this apply to police, firefighters, doctors, nurses, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the other thing that we, I think it was in May 9th, or in the middle of May, regarding the Boston Marathon, I had the opportunity, I was invited to speak at what was called the Smart 911 Annual Conference.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that.
And basically what that is it's a conference they have every year, but this is where they get all the emergency dispatchers, all the dispatchers or communications personnel who work in our police and fire, EMS, those type of departments together, and they'll talk over tragedies that may have happened, and if you want to develop a best practice approach, you really have to reevaluate or reassess what took place at certain tragedies. And one of the things that they were talking about at this was the events at the Boston Marathon, the tragedy that happened there, and what some of the difficulties that they ran into. And as being the vice chair of the Committee on Public Safety and Home Security, so I actually went there and I welcomed the group to Boston, and the Smart 911 system. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's actually it's obviously for our 911, but it allows you to have personal data. So say on your cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if you were to call 911, and they based on your number, or when you would tell them who you are, they could draw up on you. They could bring up on the computer all your personal information. It could have a photo. It could have whatever information you want on there, what doctor you see, if you have any sort of medical conditions, allergies to certain medicines. I mean, it's next of kin, who to call in an emergency. It's a complete profile. It allows individuals, the local police, the fire, emergency, EMS, to bring up on people who call in the system. Right now, the company's they're out of Framingham. Mm-hmm. I think they just within the last year started getting some municipalities in Massachusetts, but they've got some substantial contracts where I think they do the city of Atlanta and some other larger metropolitan areas where they provide this service. Mm-hmm. And it really is it's a benefit to EMS if they're on the way to your house, your home, and they've already got a profile up on you, and they've got information as far as, do you have a heart condition? Are you allergic to certain medications? They can already start preparing. So it's a pretty good system. But so they're the ones that actually sponsor this conference every year.
And you spoke at it?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
And how was the food?
Actually, no, I didn't get a chance to have any food.
If I was traveling with you, that's one thing that's a prerequisite here.
I got to enjoy the coffee, and then I had to head back to the State House.
Oh, because, well, I would have stayed
Yeah.
and ate just to make sure that everything was okay, But,
Oh, and I think, I know it was in the Millbury Sutton Chronicle, but I think we had one of our Millbury graduates, Millbury High, that just recently graduated from college, and she's now working in my office, Lindsay Beauregard. So
congratulations to Lindsay.
So she's now she's in my office. She actually interned in the office when she was in college. So
oh, good.
yeah, so we had, with getting 8 committees this year, I was able to get some assistance with some office help.
So now you're never home.
Yeah.
Which means you're not around to buy me a coffee or anything like that much.
I thought it was your turn.
Oh, wait a minute. It's always my turn. We have to fight that out when we go to Double D, which is my favorite coffee place. I think is it yours?
Yes, it is. Well, that and I still enjoy Puffins.
Yeah. Well, no, I meant as far as the chain corps. No offense to Puffins.
Oh,
Please
yeah,
don't
no.
take offense to Puffins. But I was looking at
D&D's.
at the chain coffee places like Dunkin's and what's that high-end Starbucks?
I wouldn't know.
Well, no, I wouldn't either. I have a hard time paying $2 for a cup of coffee. I don't see me paying $7 anytime too soon, you know.
Actually, no, yeah, I don't. That's only one brand of coffee they have there. There's a Starbucks and when I leave Boston, I'll have a coffee for the ride home.
Where?
Yeah,
You know,
not
I've
bad.
never really had a Starbucks coffee. Is it any good?
It's good. It's on the stronger side.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's...
But they came out with what they call the blonde, which is like a lighter coffee. I think that may be going to compete with Dunkin' Donuts, but I'm a D&D guy.
I don't know. I'm a D&D guy. I think, although I don't think you're much of a coffee drinker.
No, I am.
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were into tea and stuff like that.
Well, actually, within the last month, I just
Switched
switched
over?
over to tea.
Finally, the stress of the job has got to you.
Yeah.
I used to drink 3 or 4 Dunkins a day. Now I've got myself, believe it or not, I'm down to 1, and if you call and you're buying 2, okay? But normally I just drink 1. Well, I'm up to, that's a lie. I must tell the truth. I'm up to 2 coffees a day,
Okay.
and I've been known to have 3, but the average is 2, and I don't think 2 is unreasonable.
Yes, I go work out between 5 and 6 in the morning, so I always start. Yes, I need that. Well, that's right. I need that caffeine to give me a little
really.
boost. So,
We got a few minutes left, Mike. I'm going to ask you, and
the
I didn't
zinger?
prepare you for this, huh?
is this the zinger?
Well, it's not really a zinger.
Okay.
It could be, but I'm going to be kind,
Okay.
okay? But I want you to think back
Uh-oh.
when the Commonwealth of Massachusetts was talking about casinos.
Yes.
They ultimately passed a bill, and I hope you recall me saying to you, I hope the Commonwealth doesn't make the same mistake that Connecticut has made and become greedy and get caught up in over-regulating the casinos.
Yep.
And subsequently making it impossible for them to either want to come to the state or for the people that patronize these places to win.
Okay.
Well, I hate to say I told you so, but I'm going to say...
Well, before you get overconfident, just finish it, and before you get overconfident with... you
Well,
told
I'm
us
sure
so.
you're going to come back on me. But I'm going to use the city of Worcester as an example.
And I assumed you would.
Right, and here's an organization, because I think the city screwed up too. But, I mean, they had a chance to clean up a dirty piece of property, and they, for whatever reason, chose not to. And part of their reasoning, or part of the people that begged off that wanted to originally put the casino there, was at the end of the day, between the licensing and the taxes and the city taxes and having to give money
All right,
to
so you don't embarrass yourself on this one.
Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
here we go.
What?
You've got Rush Gaming.
Yeah,
It's one of the most successful gaming companies in the country.
yeah.
Do you or anyone really think that they did not look at the Massachusetts law and know what they were expected to
Oh,
pay
yeah,
in
I
taxes?
understand that.
So for the city of Worcester to come out and say that that was the reason, would they have paid $400,000, a non-refundable fee to the city of Worcester, I mean to the state,
No.
for an application, and then come out and say after the negotiations that, well, it's the state law and the taxes that are making us fine? Or you think maybe a deal could not be struck between the city and the developer and someone's trying to blame the state
Oh,
law?
I'll buy the second part, but what I will stand on and say I told you
And
so.
also, just by the way, you notice that and I don't know what went on in the deal, but a lot of this occurred when the hotel deal couldn't be struck, so that when the hotel seemed to be off the agenda, that all of a sudden the rest
Oh, yeah,
of the
the
deal
whole thing fell apart. I'm not
But listen,
denying
Joe,
that.
I wasn't part of the agenda, part of the negotiations, but I am fairly confident in a successful company, billion-dollar company, has read the law, the state
no
law, the state
question.
requirement.
They all have.
And, well, right. So for anybody to come out and say that the deal fell through because of the state requirements, that was known before That was known before they even entered the negotiations.
But that's speculating as much as I'm speculating.
No, that's not speculating. They knew. Look at
There's no question they knew.
They paid $400,000 for an application fee that they.
$400,000 to them is nothing.
But I'm not saying it's not
Petty
nothing.
cash.
But well, it is. But Joe, you're still paying that much money. I am very confident that they would have read the law. They knew what they were expected to pay, and what the requirements were. That the negotiations, whoever they're negotiating with, shouldn't have been an issue.
Okay.
And you know, so well, and good.
You're not giving me a chance to dispute you here.
No, good. No, good.
All right. Taking all that
Hey,
into
this goes back to like
consideration-
10 years ago.
I know when we went
On the
back and
board.
forth, but we're a little more polite now. I'm not blaming you.
Oh no, no, oh no! Listen, I know you're not. But
Okay.
I'm just saying. I read that when I saw that in the newspaper, and the first thing that came to my mind, I'm laughing. I'm like, how can you even claim that when?
Oh, you had to have read it, and I'm not. We don't have time for me to get into an argument. Well, whether they read
Discussion.
it or not, I think 49% tax, and fees and all that stuff is unreasonable. And then tell the people to go patronize these casinos when they finally open, if they open, and expect the people to have a shot at winning, because that isn't going to happen.
And you know, and I was going to tell you, by the time we have the next show,
Yeah,
this will be a better conversation.
I hope so, because I'm just going to say one more thing about this.
Okay.
The bottom line is, I stand on this, and I'll stand on I told you so. We're no closer to putting a casino up today than we were before the bill was
Again,
passed.
our next show we'll have a better conversation.
Well, you know what?
And you still have Milford. You still have Foxwoods, Massachusetts, still engaged in Milford, trying to go forward. You still have the gaming company that's trying to get into Boston. All these other, you've still got Palmer, which not only has, they're still trying to get the casino there. They've actually increased their investment by $1 billion. So all these other gaming companies aren't deterred by the tax structure of the state.
I understand
But for
that.
some reason, this one, this one, it fell apart because of the state law.
But I'm not hanging my hat on that. Now, as far as Milford and Foxwood goes, I mean, I go a little inside track on that one. That may go the way of the dinosaur, only because of the fact
The voters may not approve it. The gaming commission may not approve it.
Well, not only that, but I mean, one of the selectmen in Milford made a comment to Foxwood people saying, "Look, why would we want to take your casino and bring it into Milford when you're on the verge, or you have filed bankruptcy in Connecticut and you're $2.5 billion in debt?" Good point.
Yep.
Good point. Mohegan Sun up at this
Well,
end.
because that's what they're going to close down in Connecticut, shut operations, so now all of Connecticut will come to Massachusetts.
Okay. All right, listen, I'm going to hold you to that 30 days, buddy.
Okay.
All right, and we're going to have another conversation
Yes, we
about
will.
this.
We will.
And because I really want it to be alive when Massachusetts got its casinos. And each day that goes by, that probability is
Joe,
diminishing.
you just said at the start of the show that you're going to be here for the tricentennial.
No, I applied to be the announcer at the
Okay.
Tricentennial, and they said that they would take it under consideration.
Okay.
So I can see you. No, I don't see that happening. But I do want to say that in 30 days we will talk about this, because people are still very interested in seeing casinos here. Now, Twin Rivers is opening up 40. I think it's.
Do you think people in Millbury, Grafton, these areas are all in favor of if a vote went out to these?
Oh, I have no clue. I really don't know that. I'm not going to stick my neck out and say, yeah, everybody wants it. I'm saying there are a lot of people, and probably the majority, because there is a lot of money to be made, especially for the host community and the ones that are one towns out. But I see now Twin Rivers down in Rhode Island, they've added, I want to say either 46 or 76 gaming tables. And they're moving forward with their casinos.
Yep.
Everybody seems to be moving forward. Even New Hampshire, in record time, and it surprised me, the legislature voted down casinos in New Hampshire. I thought that was a dumb move. at least give the people a chance to vote on it. And but you got Connecticut still, although they're not doing that well. You've got
But
Twin
again,
Rivers.
Connecticut though, Joe, Foxwoods was doing well when when it was just them. Mohegan Sun gets constructed, they were doing well. And I understand about the economy collapsing, but a lot of their financial problems didn't occur until they built the third, until MGM went in.
Right.
So
They caused themselves grief there.
Right. So could they have maybe overbuilt for
Well,
their customer base?
That was part of it, but you know what? They also changed the way they did business. And when they started changing the way they did business and the way that they classified their customers, okay, it hurt them a lot. I mean, I don't go down any, you know how I used to go to the casino. I mean, I'd run out the door after a selectmen's meeting, be in my car and on my way to Foxwood. And now if I go down there once every 3 months, it's a lot because the place has, if you were a gambler, you'd see dynamically these places have changed. Anytime you go to these casinos now, because of the way they're doing business, is whatever money you go down with the idea you're going to lose. And if you happen to win, that's a plus. I mean, it's not the same.
And I'm saying we'll talk in 30 days from now because I think in 30 days we'll have a lot more movement in Milford. You're going to see some of these things. You're going to see some of these things moving on.
Well, it would be nice because it's still going to be 2-3 years before any of these things get built.
Yep.
With the exception of a slot pile, you probably can put that up in 1.5 years.
Yeah.
You know, but other than that, so I mean, I'd really like to be able to, without getting a pass from the nursing home, to go to these casinos. You know?
Well, they're just saying, like we're saying, if Palmer, which I think the developer just bumped their investment up to $1 billion. So you've got competing. You got someone for Palmer. You got someone trying to get one in Springfield. So hopefully in 30 days from now, we'll see some movement as far as some of these.
Well, let's see what happens when we tape the show in 30 days.
Okay.
But I think I'm in the ballpark here.
Okay.
I'll bet you dinner.
At the Calabria.
Okay, dinner at the Calabria. Okay.
Sounds good.
I'm going to enjoy you paying. I love it when you pay. Mike, tell everybody how we get a hold of you.
My office number is 617-722-1485, and my email address is michael.moore@masenate.gov.
Now, I have a Facebook now.
Oh, okay.
I kept it after the election. So I don't know how to get into it, but people can figure it out. And also you can reach me on my phone, which is going across the screen, because a lot of times people ask me to get a hold of Mike, so or I give them direction on how to get a hold of Mike's office so that they can deal with it. I've had a lot of that lately too.
Yep, it's good.
And but I think because you've been so busy and you're in Boston with the budget and everything, and because I notice every budget season my requests for you increase.
And I kind of disappear for a while.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and actually, speaking of Facebook, if anyone does try to, because I have a page on there for the Senate, if you try to like my page on, friend me on Facebook, there's a cap of 5,000 friends, so we've reached that cap. So if you want to monitor, because we put a lot of press releases out or information on the Facebook page, so if you are looking to stay up to date on that, if you can just like the page, and I think then this way you can access some of the information we put out.
Why do you limit your friends to 5,000?
We don't. Facebook does.
Oh, Facebook does?
Yeah, Facebook.
Really?
Yeah. So
5,000 people are. Yeah. So I can't befriend you?
no, if you're not a friend now, then I've hit my cap.
I gotta check. I gotta have my wife check, see if I'm a real friend. I think I might have jumped on that one. I got ambitious and
I
went
think you
on.
might have, because I think we already friended you. So.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel better now. All right, folks. On that note, have a great rest of the summer.
I hope everyone had a good 4th of July and they enjoyed the festivities in the bicentennial celebration.
Yep. And until the next time, be safe. Remember, motorcycles are everywhere. Drive safely.